The problem with the church today is not how to engage the culture or understanding the culture. The main problem with the church is just biblical illiteracy. And so that from kids all the way through adults. And so
Mhm.
really this book, I mean, it's sort of an indirect. I wasn't really thinking about this as we were writing it, but this book would go a long way, and because it's so content driven, it's so, how does each book, what is Paul doing in Colossians, and how does Colossians fit into the grand narrative of scripture? It's so content heavy that we there are so, most New Testament introductions just talk about authorship or pseudepigraphy or dating or provenance. These issues, those are important issues. But really, if we're going to grow in the faith, if the church is going to continue to be effective, both in its worship of Christ and in its interaction with culture, we've got to remember that we have to always keep the Bible where it needs to be, and that is to learn it, to learn the content, to teach it out. So
Mhm.
it really is going to go. It's very much doing that sort of thing, and so that's why I think I've had pastors tell me they train elders with it. They use it in Sunday school context, high schools. When Doc, when you and I were at TGC, one of the guys came up after we talked and said, "I think that this would be great in a high school." He's a high school Bible teacher. He's like, "I think this would work in a high school context for those
Definitely.
sorts of classes." So really, I really could go from high school, Sunday school, youth group, all the way up. And I use it in my seminary classes. I paired it with Carson and Moo because
Yes.
we're really trying to teach people the content of scripture.
I was just going to ask you that. I mean, I couldn't agree more with everything you've said right there. But one of the traditional books that we would be familiar with is Carson and Moo's Introduction to the New Testament. And this book is not contrary to that book, as if Carson and Moo is no longer necessary. Certainly, your book, The Story Retold, stands on its own, but they can work well together and complement one another, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that Carson and Moo would go into much more detail uh, as a classic introduction to the New Testament, and then ours would, place the different parts of those New Testament books into the grand storyline, and then move through the various old and the new portions of those books, which Carson and Moo do not do. So um, so yeah, I think ideally, if you could have both, that
Yeah.
would be wonderful.